Hello.
Yay!
Woo! All
And
right.
the show must go on.
We put up our websites here, so all the stuff we're showing today is going to be potentially a little crazy town, but there's step-by-step how-tos on our blog, so you too can be crazy. And those are our Twitter hashtags if you want to tweet out about our awesomeness or follow us on Twitter so you can see new fun and exciting things that we come up with. All right, Alan.
So, here's the first mind blower. Tableau is more than dashboards. Oh my God. I know this comes as a shock to quite a few people in the room, but a long time ago, I had a guy come on the user community forum boards called Noah Salvatera. And he showed the way, what could be done with mathematics. And then I just realized, you know, Tableau is simply X at the top, then Y in the next one. And the rest of it is just mathematics. And he built, you know, the L-tree fractals, and he built a 3D globe in Tableau, for God's sake. And then that to me pointed the way to something that changed my perspective on Tableau. And it's not to say I find dashboards boring, but we do. So there you go. There's the first revelation. Yep.
So Alan's inspiration is that everything is part of a canvas. I have a similar thought, but from a different perspective. I always try to approach, really? Get over here, baby.
Yeah. Cool.
I always want to be reminded that data is about things, right? It's not just pixels on a dashboard. So I always try to humanize data as much as possible. And by moving beyond, just the simple bar charts and line charts and dots on a map to try and really create a viz that's evocative of the topic of the data. I'll just hug up on him all night. It's kind of nice.
It's okay.
All right. My baby.
Are you ready? Is it work? It's just not working, is it?
All right. So really the thesis of our talk today is this concept of we don't build dashboards, we build tools, right? So tools, not jewels. This only applies to Tableau boys. Otherwise, jewelry, way much better, right? So just so we're clear on that one. And so Alan and I, we hang out a lot and drink a lot and get in fights a lot. Woo! Yes,
Yay.
All right. And one night he was talking about, oh, everyone should have a Tesla. It's the best car. It's the only car. That's the ultimate car. Everyone should have a Tesla. And I'm like, well, they're pretty sweet, but I'm a mom, and I got to put surfboards on the top, and there's kids spilling goldfish crackers in the back, and I really wouldn't want a Tesla. I need my shitpacker mom station wagon. So based on the context of my situation and my goals, I have a very different criteria of what success means.
There's wants and there's needs.
And he drives a beat-up old Mercedes that's like 30 years old.
20 years old Mercedes-Benz. $300 and it works just great.
Not a Tesla. And so really to understand what success means, you really have to come from a position of empathy for your users. And does your user really want to come into work today oh, I can't wait to get to work and open that dashboard. I'm so excited, right? No, they want to do their job and they want a tool to enable them to be able to better perform whatever it is they're doing.
And we'd like to be ironic about things.
Yeah, that was,
Please bear with us.
And so in a Tableau Public sense, it's very easy to do this. And a lot of my work in Tableau Public is kind of very cartoony, and again, back to this humanizing approach. And so here, trying to make things familiar and put it into the context of a way that someone can understand it. So here is a viz I did where I tracked every product that I used for a day. And again, using Noah Salvatera's genius math, I said, I want to be able to animate building a pile of shit as it accumulates over the day. And you can hover over each, this is up on Tableau Public, and you can hover over each one and there's a story. And you can actually slice and dice it by wants versus needs. And you can break it down by whether a thing was female specific or male specific. And it's a really interesting way to analyze patterns. I found out I was characterizing a lot of things that were female as wants instead of needs, but then very frustrated because I couldn't imagine not having lipstick. So why was I being forced to purchase these products and considering them wants and not necessities? So I was, again, bringing in these cartoon images of each of the 220 products that I used that day was a way to really tell a story rather than just a bar chart of pixels of the 220 products. Another way to really kind of bring the message to the user is the concept of relevance, making it very relevant to each of the users. And this was a viz that I did where I took all the bombs dropped in the Vietnam War and transposed the lat longitudes onto cities in the United States, calculated the bomb blast radius, and then clipped the building shape files in each of the cities to show if this had transpired in New York, in Washington, in San Francisco, and you can actually zoom in to the household layer to see, what the effects of something like this would have been on your city. Right? And you can, in mine, like the elementary school next door gets blown up. So just a way to put things in a way that people can relate to make them more powerful. Now we talked about dashboards and why we're like, dashboards. And I think one of the things is a lot of us have been building them so long that there's this concept of habituation, right? We all know what a dashboard looks like. Put a bar chart here, put a spark line here, put a big KPI wall at the top, good, right?
Knock it out.
Yeah, woo. And so we all know if you do a Google search on dashboard, this is what comes up, right? A standard tab, that's what a dashboard looks like. But if you go on Fiverr, which is a site where you can hire people to build things for you, you can get a Tableau dashboard built for $5.
Foot long, $5 foot long.
Right? So unless you're bringing something else to the game, like, you're going to be irrelevant, right? If this can be done for $5. So how do you then move to creating more powerful dashboards and more powerful data? And again, back to this, ask the user why? And I know I was in the finance meetup yesterday, and there were folks asking, how do I get my users away from wanting a printed PDF? Right? They just want the printed PDF. And again, you have to ask them why. Come at it from a point of empathy. What is it that you're getting out of this PDF that enables you to do your job? And then let's work together to figure out how to make that even more effective of a tool. Okay, and so one way to kind of get an understanding of kind of how all different users think of it differently. Uh-oh, volume. We're just having all kinds of speaker problems, huh? Oh, we might just have to watch it without sound. Sorry, hold on, we can do it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, just the sound's not working. That's okay. Basically, this is a user experience designer, and he walks through asking different people how they would make toast. And even without sound, it's still pretty cool. Oh, God. Why is it doing? Sorry. Oop. Is it working? Oh, my goodness. Tech nightmare today. All right, we're just going to play it in small format. All right. Yeah. So he's going to walk you through. He's a very experienced user experience designer, so you can see my little cheat sheets. And he starts asking people to just draw on a piece of paper how you make toast. And the drawings that he gets are just wildly different, from people honing in on the mechanics of the toaster to people focusing a lot on the actual toast itself or putting the jam on the toast. And so it's really, if you follow through with your users and you actually ask them, how is it that you will use this dashboard? How will you flow through the data? You're going to be able to make much more effective dashboards. All right, sorry that didn't work, but you can Google it on your own later. All right. And so we all know, again, this is what a sales dashboard looks like, right? I went on Google, picked out sales dashboard. This was one of the ones that came to the top. And I can't take dashboards like this. I look at these dashboards, and we start in the upper top with just a wall of KPIs. And there is no context for these KPIs. I don't know if they're important. They're not benchmarked against a target or a goal. There's a bunch of them. Is the priority list in the order they're listed? I don't know. I have no context or understanding of why these KPIs are relevant to me. I then have about 4 years of sales history data. If I'm a sales rep, I care about my number this quarter. I don't care about 5 years ago, right? I need a little bit of context, but I don't need 90% of this dashboard is being taken up by historical irrelevance. And then there's a bunch of stuff off to the side, and I'm not really quite sure what value add that's bringing, and I don't understand how this dashboard is helping me to drive, to make my number, how to get more sales. Right? And so we like to focus on a concept. We call it Dagnabit. What is the user going to make the user go I need to pay attention, I need to do action, or this is going to give me something that's going to help me do my job. And so here is just an attempt at a redesign of that sales dashboard, and I've redone it in mobile because I want my sales reps to be out in the field. it very clearly pops to the top the Dagnabit, which is you need to make this number. This is how much time you have left to do it. It gives a little bit of historical context, but what it really focuses on is the linearity of a sales cycle, because it's not a diagonal line, right? Everyone knows you close more sales toward the ends of a quarter. So it's comparing the linearity of where you are in that slope versus the same slope the previous year. And then down below, it's showing me the customers that are in your pipeline, the potential revenue for each customer, and then on the other side of the scatter plot, the probability to close, right? So you get the, oh shit, you get the context, and then you get how do I take action. So it's not a dashboard, it's a tool. Right? Yes? No? Woo! All right, there we go. Everyone's so quiet. All right. It's freaking me out. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
They're like, how can I walk out politely? All right. So again, to get this insight as to what users need, you really need to bring them in. They're part of your user experience team.
Yeah.
And so I actually went to Zambia twice. The first time I went was 2 years ago, and before going, we created a bunch of dashboards, and we were like, we're Zen masters, we're gonna build the fantastical. So we came up with these like modeled facility catchment areas using Voronoi polygons, and we have all these like node and network graph things, and we show up there, and they're like, yeah, so I just need to figure out who hasn't turned in their data, reorganize this dump out of the local health system, and turn it into a way that I can tell people they need to turn their data sets in so we can effectively track malaria. And so thinking I was super clever, I like in 2 minutes whipped out this little dashboard showing which health facilities had not yet turned in different weeks or different months of data so they could then follow up. And I said, well, that's great, but this is what Zambia looks like, and nobody out in the field actually has a desktop, much less a smartphone. We need a way to be able to use Tableau to communicate to people in areas like this to turn in their data so we can accurately understand where incidence of malaria is occurring so we can take action. And so Jonathan joined me, he's in the audience, yay! He busted out Viz Alerts. I don't know if any of you have seen the Viz Alerts, but basically taking these values out of Tableau and pushing them out into a text message, into a form factor. So this is a Tableau dashboard pushed out into a form factor
Of an SMS.
that the user could actually use. All right? Go Jonathan, yay! And here's Mariana, she's out in the field and super excited because she used to have to be one of the people that spent 2 days calling up health facilities and following up and saying, oh, you need to return these different weeks of data that are missing. And so this was really a good kick in the head for me to just try and learn from other user experiences. We're so used to dashboards and habituations, and this is how you interact with a dashboard. But there are so many things around us that are completely different user experiences, and we can help incorporate them to help make our dashboards that much more powerful. So now we're going to get on the crazy town stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
My piece.
And so, yeah, go.
So, in my old life, I wasn't a developer for a consultancy company. I was in the United Kingdom military. And we had big screens and lots of information coming in, and we called it Situational Awareness. And this is where you get multiple streams of information coming in, and you have to make sense of it somehow. The most important thing, though, that we kind of want to push towards is this concept of recommended insights and recommended actions. So, yeah. So as you can see on the left-hand side here, we have what should the user actually do as an action, right? The rationale behind that is that we've always, we want to make our products actionable, but what if we were smart about it and used something like, the recommender engine like recommended tables to produce a list that was automated and calculated and ranked and weighted so that the user can then actually go down a list of actions to take. The other piece, though, which I think is even more exciting because I've yet to see a successful Tableau implementation of it, I've only really seen it in military systems, is this concept of recommended insights. So what this is, we would actually be only presenting to the user the data and the insight and the metric that matters. Everything else is just noise at that point. So again, these are some high-level thinking concepts that we want to bring into the Tableau ecosystem, and we're getting fairly good at starting to think around these kind of concepts.
And I was really excited when I built this. The director at PATH said, I never thought I'd like pink and purple.
And you gotta hit it with a glitter
really
stick.
Happy. I got pink in a dashboard. Sweet. All right, some of the other kind of user experiences that we want to learn from and be able to incorporate into Tableau. One is a concept of streaming content, right? We go on Pinterest, or we go on Facebook, or we go on Twitter, and we are fed a stream of things that are most likely of interest or of relevance to us based on past things that we've looked at. So last year, Dagnabit created kind of a streaming content platform as an alternate for Tableau server called Bubbleblick. And it would allow you, instead of logging into server, trying to find for your workbook, opening it up, figuring out which worksheet tab, it would basically feed you different visualizations based on ones that you looked at in the past, ones that you liked in the past, what other people in the organization are looking for, so things that are very popular, or anomalous values or alerts in the data, right? So again, taking user experience from these streaming content platforms and applying it to Tableau to make it much easier to consume all your workbooks and dashboards and make sure you're not missing something that everyone else in the company is looking at. My background is actually in economics and in industrial design, so I've been having a lot of fun playing with trying to incorporate elements from these disciplines into Tableau. So here's an AutoCAD drawing of the iWatch, or the iWatch? Watch the thing. And I wanted to be able to do something like this in Tableau. So in order to make this happen, I brought in the orthographic views, in this case of a Tesla, and first I had to bring them into QGIS and create shape files, and then export those shape files as a data source into Tableau, so you could then look at perhaps damage on a car or things occurring during manufacturing in a view that is more like what someone that works in a car manufacturing plant might be familiar with looking at, right? And it gives you the additional context of where on the car. So it's really turning this vehicle into a map, right?
Absolutely. Everything's a scatterplot.
Yep. Everything's a map.
It's a map and a scatterplot. X over Y.
All right, now we're going to go, and I know everyone says, don't do 3D and touch. No, Edward Tufte will get mad at you. Don't do 3D.
Oh God, 3D. It's the final frontier.
We're going to do a lot of 3D. So there's this very awesome book. It's really about cartoon or comic books and kind of the merging of visuals with text. And it kind of opens up this concept of people just being open to expanding their horizons. And it starts out with a square visiting a line. And of course, the line can only see the portion of the square that's intersecting its single plane. And he finally, he gets kind of frustrated, but he meets a sphere. And from his perspective, the sphere is just different cuts of the circle. And so we're kind of trying to approach Tableau like that, of moving away from this flatland and into more three-dimensional representations of objects, again, to increase the efficacy of your dashboards and make them more relatable to the end users. So here's an example of 3D design. This is for a hydrogen vehicle. And what I want to point out, people go, but the bar chart's most effective. If I want to know the number of damage areas on a car, this is the most effective way to do it. But I would argue you then lose the context of the object as a whole. So if you were seeing damage on multiple areas of the car that were perhaps all in the same location, you could then examine your manufacturing process to see what is going wrong at that part of, when they're doing that part of the car. Right, so here's bringing 3D images. This was actually Phil Riggs, who's here in the audience.
Yep, thanks, Phil.
STL files and wrote an excellent macro in Alteryx that you can download right from the Alteryx, or you can go to the Alteryx site and run the workflow for one object. But you can basically convert anything into a 3D object for use in Tableau, from an STL into a TDE.
And don't forget Noah's mathiness.
Huh? Oh, and Noah's mathiness, yes. And this one, you can rotate it and all kinds of crazy things. And just another example I threw in there, I did a 3D version of the human heart, so you can manage, imagine perhaps looking at medical applications and things actually looking at where they're located on the body instead of just a bar chart describing a human.
Yep.
Another thing that I was really into in my industrial design background is 3D printing. This concept of, you're building three-dimensional objects, but you're printing one layer at a time, right? And you're layering up on top of one another. And so this one's kind of hard to see, but I wanted to have 3D spheres in Mapbox and then bring them into Tableau. And I was just being goofy, so I called this I've got big pink balls.
Just two big pink balls.
They're just two big pink balls. But in order to do this, because Mapbox you could only at the time extrude straight up and down, I actually created 100 different layers, increasing and then decreasing the radius of the sphere and extruding each one just a small bit. Okay? And we've gotten a lot of feedback of like, oh, but why is this practical?
Why would you
want big pink balls and
do this?
And so Alan, we can talk about, what did you do?
So we took all of...
What's the joke? You missed the joke.
Huh?
The joke was he chopped my balls in half.
I chopped the balls in half, I did.
Damn
So what we're actually doing for a large communication company network that's based in Seattle, called T-Mobile. And so we used exactly this technique to extrude all of their cells, all of their antennas, all of their hexes, which are owned by the FCC. And using Mapbox, we're then able to do massive, massive data. But the trick to this is because it's completely disaggregated data at scale, we can just click on any of these things and bring up a Tableau, I'm going to say the word dashboard, but a Tableau dashboard that can show the trend over time for that particular piece. Or we can put more Tableau charts around the side of it to do our aggregations that maybe, it's a specific city, or we could do it for a specific area or a specific sales region, for example. So this just goes to show that from crazy town, 2 pink balls, to an X whatever dollar project it is, with a real application that the client is going bonkers about because they've never been able to actually see their entire network like this, and be able to tie it back to Tableau to make the charts and the graphs and let it do what Tableau should be used for, which is what it's good at, as in doing some charts, right?
Cool. All right. So our next user experience that we're going to draw into is Hollywood. I'm from LA, so I can relate. And here, this is just a scene from the Hunger Games. This is the control room, right, where they're kind of building the scene that's going on and sending in all kinds of evil to torment the players. And so I did a version of this, and I just kind of wanted to show, in Tableau currently, when we look at things on a map, it's always the dot on the map, right? And that's interesting. It shows things, right? It's interesting. But I wanted to explore, and this was going back to the Vietnam data and kind of the concept of a bomb blast radius. And so when I brought it into Mapbox and extruded it out and then into Tableau, the concept was really like, if a bomb was going off, what would the blast look like, right? And so here is just moving away from that flatland, unflattening, to bring a lot more emotion and a lot more drama and a lot more relevance into what's being rendered into Tableau. On this one, I'm bummed the sound doesn't work. So this is a video of my 12-year-old son playing Halo 5. And every day I come home and, I'm like, how was school today? And he tells me about his day. And he's like, what did you do? And I'll show him a dashboard I was working on. And he's like, the eye roll, like the Sherman, whatever. Right? Because in his world, this is what's interesting in graphics, right? He's playing these games. And while he's playing them, he's actually looking at these little widgets that are floating all over the screen. And he's talking to me at the same time, he's shooting, and he's like, no, I look on the lower left, and I see where the enemies are, I see where my players are, I see what my health is, I see what my strength is, I see what weapon I'm using, all while he's going about his job, or whatever he's, while he's going about playing. And so I wanted to bring that into Tableau, and really from a user flow experience, in Tableau we're so used to stopping what we're doing, logging onto server, looking for our dashboard, opening it up, figuring out what we need to do, closing the dashboard, and going back to work.
No, just look left.
Yeah, Max's example is look left, right? That's all he needs to do to get his insight. And so sometimes we want that in Tableau, so I created a widget in my desktop, and I can bring these onto my desktop. And this is live call center data streaming in. I've added ambient lighting in the background and just another visual cue if things are good or getting dangerous or need to be paid attention to. And I can get along with important things like shoe shopping while keeping an eye on my call center data. Okay, so again, taking that form factor from video games of the widget to improve the user experience. Okay, and I did not buy the shoes even though they're smoking hot. They didn't know my size. All right. Sorry. Look at other good ones. All right. Alan, your turn.
Yeah. So, as some of you know, I like pushing stuff to the edge and back of where what Tableau can do. I was inspired recently by, this is a Swedish furniture company called IKEA. And they were kind of at the forefront of this virtual reality piece, where users would put on these really great-looking glasses in the middle of a shop to be able to see what they could buy in the shop already. But so it works. So I thought, well, let's just do it with Tableau dashboards. Why not? This is a open source software library called A-Frame. It writes just like the same as HTML. But look, if you want to show off, and you can wear your silly Oculus Rifts and your Google glasses if you want to as well. But what this means is you can do it without those peripherals and hardware and enjoy doing something, again, that's a little bit silly, quite a bit of fun, but there is a practical use case at the end of it, in as much as if you wanted a virtual operational center with all your dashboards, but you don't have the space, you could literally just walk into it if you really wanted to. And then the next bit, so where IKEA were with the virtual reality a couple of years ago, they are now in a place with this, again, it's right at the top of the hype cycle, guys, so be aware, called Augmented Reality. And this is where IKEA see the future by being able to, you go on your mobile phone and you go, oh, I want an IKEA table right there. Let's see what it would look like, right? And here's the kind of application for it. And this is going crazy. You have, Apple chasing it big time. You have with ARKit. And it's just, I think it's a lot of fun right now. There's no real use case. But this is what I did with augmented reality. Decided to use, again, open source piece of software and able to show a spinning Tableau dashboards, our war games viz that we worked on together. Same thing. Why not? Because I can. So.
Jeff Spicoli likes it.
Yeah, it's Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times, Ridgemount High. Yeah. So here's the bit. For all of the bit that up to now, you can just go away home tomorrow and not even bother thinking about it because it's not really applicable to Tableau or anything. Well, kind of, but this bit I'm going to shut up and let Anya talk because I think it's really, really important what Anya has come up with, and I just want you to stop and think and listen for a minute because it's powerful, I think.
Thanks, man. All right. Wow, how do I pull it? Okay. So yet another user experience that I wanted to explore is art, right? And what a great visualization medium, right? Art, paint on canvas. And I had gone to a JMW Turner exhibit at the De Young in San Francisco with Jonathan Drummey and Noah Salvatore about 3 years ago. So that's how long I've been thinking about this. And one of the remarkable things about Turner's oil paintings is these like incredible washes of ambient light and using lightness to be able to pop out what's important in the painting, where your eyes should be focused. And so we're all very familiar with the pre-attentive attributes that we have in Tableau. These are the DataBlick conference t-shirts this year. They're really cute. I have a couple. If you come up after, you might get one. And I really wanted to come up with a new way to, again, focus on that Dagnabit. And oftentimes, and the concept of Dagnabit is how far away something is from its expected value, weighted by its criticality, right? If an one InfoSec incident is way more critical than maybe a 10% increase in sales at a certain point in time, right? That's what you need to focus on at that moment, is that InfoSec security breach. So given our normal kind of wall of numbers KPI dashboard, this is what we're all very used to seeing. So this is a concept of all these metrics. We see whether they're up or down versus the previous, and we have a little bit of color coding as to whether they're good or bad, but we really don't have this weight of Dagnabit. We don't understand the relevance or how much I need to react to, is this a crisis or not, right? Is this something that really needs my immediate attention? So I wanted to play with pre-attentive attributes in order to be able to pop out this weight. And one of the first examples is, of course, color. Oh, sorry. Is the concept of color. Oop, there we go. And so this is just really sped up GIF, but it's looking at different metrics and using color so that everything else is muted except for the things that you need to be paying attention to. So we just sped it up so it would be interesting, but you would imagine every second this updating, and you would be able really quick with that pop of color to see what I need to focus my eye on, where my attention should be going. But this wasn't really what I got from Turner, right? I really wanted to not just consider the criticality or the Dagnabit of each of these metrics, but I wanted to consider them in relationship to one another in the composition as a whole. So there might be a couple metrics that are vying for my attention at the same time. What's the relationship of all those metrics together, and how can I use a pre-attentive attribute to pop that out? And so using JMW Turner as an example, we came up with the concept of this ambient lighting in the background. And as the metrics are going through, you'll notice that the lighting in the background is changing to draw your focus to where you need to be looking relative to the criticality of all these metrics interacting at the same time as they relate to what you need to do when you see something going haywire. So this is kind of this concept of, and I have people, that's not a new pre-attentive attribute, it's just color. I'm like, well, no, because we just saw color, and this has nothing to do with the mark. This is going on behind the mark. This is ambient lighting in the background. And we can still argue, and we should go do it over like Manhattans in a bar, because that would be awesome. All right. And so we've kind of, in the last half hour, 40 minutes, talked through a lot of stuff. And so going back to that unflattening example, we've kind of moved into the 3D realm. And in the comic book, you kind of, well, the square then asks the sphere that's just taught him about the 3D world, well, what's next? What comes after 3D? And the sphere's like, no, there's nothing. But I would want to invite you and challenge you to keep trying to figure out what is the next thing? What are new user experiences or other experiences that you can bring in to help making more powerful and effective dashboards? Things like looking at music, right? Music has a rhythm and a tempo. So does your data, right? Your sales data generally has a tempo. How do you bring in concepts like music to be able to visually communicate that tempo and where there's anomalies, or maybe even drive an increase in tempo? Just looking at things like dance, that back and forth argument or that back and forth movement of two things interacting with one another. How do you bring that storytelling into your data and into your dashboards? Roddy Zakovich, he came up with exercise. He's like, we get so bored and our bodies get bored with our exercise routines. How do you break things up and challenge and change things up and keep it interesting and keep things effective? So just looking at all these different user experiences and pondering how they could be related to dashboards and help make them more effective. And then again, moving away from kind of that 2D to 3D to what other things can we bring in to make things more effective, right? We have watches that vibrate or they make noises when something happens. How do we bring that into our dashboards? How would you bring in textures? How could you potentially 3D print information so people could feel it? Using things like vibration and haptic feedback. different movement. I might put smell up there just to be goofy, but you never know. So really, we'd like to invite you to, you may have found this all to be a bit goofy or a bit crazy, but there's a lot to be learned from just getting away from Tableau dashboards being a dashboard, and that's what the user experience is, to looking at the world around you and bringing in things that you see as successful in other user experiences and adding them to your data.
Yeah, that's the key piece for me is, please don't fall into this habituation trap and just keep banging Tableau dashboards out and charts out and without any thought or consideration for what you're trying to achieve. And understand your stakeholder, really listen to them, and then where I find the fun bit is, let's innovate and let's start thinking about how can we, bring in all our learning from the outside world into building not just a dashboard, but a holistic, scalable enterprise application that can usually make a tremendous difference.
Tools, not jewels.
Yep, tools, not jewels. Thank you very much. Are we doing questions and answers?
Sure. Does anyone have a question? Oh.
A microphone for questions.
You can come up and talk into my chest. It's all good. I don't bite. You're talking to his chest. Ha, bait and switch. Wow.
There you go. Please speak into my chest, son. Please.
It's hairy.
Be so kind of
Yeah,
Terry.
it's really hairy.
Nice to meet you.
Did you see the ears?
How do you do?
So, I'm not a fan of...
Let me move this out.
Yeah,
You can talk into it.
I can hold it in my hand.
You can hold it too.
No, I think that one didn't work. Remember the whole beginning. It's all good. We'll make it work. We got it.
So it seems that there's a fashion trend to overly visually complex dashboards. That's what's in fashion these days. Okay. And I want to know, I'm new to Tableau, what happened to it seemed like there was a time when worksheets, as told as a story from left to right, was the way to do things. Mm-hmm. And now it seems, I think, overly fashioned to have this visual clutter and against all kinds of things I've read about what's a good design. Yep. So I'd like to hear since you are a philosopher of these things, your philosophy about when is it good to have this dashboardy thing and when is it good to have a series of pictures to tell a story?
You want me to do that one?
I'll try first, because I'm sure my opinion will be vastly different to yours. So here's my deal. I do one dashboard with one worksheet, and then I put that one dashboard with one worksheet in a web page where I want it, and I format the web page rather than format Tableau. I literally just build a chart and put it into a dashboard, publish that, and then that's it. The reason I do that is so that I don't there's a lot of performance issues apart from anything else. The more, can I say the word crap you put on your dashboard, the worse it'll perform. It's taking more queries, it's just more stuff. Why would you do that? The other thing, I think, is you can do something tremendously clever and tremendously mathy, and yet it can be tremendously simple, too. Like, I find part of my job, especially when I'm talking to clients, is I'm constantly trying to simplify. Now, actually, it's not even the case of simplifying dashboards anymore for me. It's simplifying the HTML or the JavaScript behind it to 3 or 4 lines to do what it takes Tableau 16 or 20 things to do. There was one example that Jonathan was talking about with the slide-out menu that you've seen that takes 16 steps that you have to go through for it to work in Tableau. Whereas for me, I just write hide or show. That's it. So I think from a design perspective, I'm probably not the best person to talk to about, because I kind of have to break through all of the Tableau paradigm to get it to be where I need to be, which is just showing what I want to show.
Yep. He totally didn't answer your question, did he? I have my own.
Oh, you
okay.
do?
I do have my own.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the stuff is kind of a little out there art-wise, and these are the Tableau public pieces. But even in these that are more crazy, the stairs of the city is a KPI, a map, and a bar chart. It is not overcomplicated. It is actually really hard to be so simple. I have so many clients who are like, oh, but I need it broken down by this, and I need it broken down by that. Right? Again, Twitter TV is a word cloud and a bar chart, and then the quick filters are hidden up in the remote. Again, there's not a lot in there, right? And when we go back to that sales dashboard, while we talk about using all these, 3D and all that stuff, not one of these examples had a lot of different stuff in it, right? So this is very clean. We looked at the dashboard that was above it, right, this one, and there's stuff all over the place. This is clutter, right? But this is considered dashboard best practice, right? This was in the big book of dashboards as an ideal example, and it's, the person that uses it loves it, and that's great, right? So for them in their context, it's wonderful. But again, here we have a KPI at the top that's put in context. We have a line chart, and then we just have, there's 3 charts in there, right? And one's a KPI. So you need to, what is it that needs to be done? Only put in the dashboard what's necessary to answer that question. Everything else is noise, and everything else will delete from the message and cause confusion, right? What's the anomalous value I need to pay attention to? How do I react to it? Is that better? Yeah. Okay. But this is the same thing, right? You told a story left to right. You had your metrics. Well, that's because this is a mobile app, right? You can do it left. Or find a way to tell it better, right? Why do you need the 6 different charts? Is there a way to? Yeah.
This one is perfect.
Okay. Baby, you meet at the bar later. You're gonna whip out your dashboard, and I'm gonna totally redo it for you. Okay? You're gonna buy me a Manhattan? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Oh, you just want to drink?
Thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting. I guess my one question, you talked a lot about habituation, so I'm kind of curious. If we all took this totally to heart, went back to our organizations, put it totally into practice, would we be back here next year, and would you guys be having to tell us something new because everybody got used to this new way of doing it?
Did you not see my last slide? What? What? No, I challenged you. I want you to come back and do something different and new.
But, I mean, do you understand my question, though? If, like you had your sales dashboard, which is simplified. And so I agree with you 100%. So we all go back and we simplify. And now that's what a dashboard is. When you Google dashboard, that comes up. And so do we need to kind of run to stay still? I guess is all I'm asking. Do you think this is a continual, people will get used to that simplified version? We'll have to somehow jazz it up again to keep them interested.
Because I've started building dashboards for the iWatch. So yeah, that form factor is almost irrelevant. So yes. Sorry. You gotta keep it running, honey. Sorry.
Thanks for bringing it up. I feel like I have a tantrum every time I see one of those or get asked to build one of those executive dashboards. I think I might be building on the first question, which is how do you break your organization of that habit?
I'm just really bitchy and go, no, you didn't hire me and pay me all this money to keep doing things the old way. But again, back to that empathy, right? Back to that question of I appreciate that this is the form that you want it in. Can you actually walk me through how you, let's make the piece of toast. Walk me through, step by step, you get this dashboard, what insights are you gleaning from it, what do you do after you do that, right? Once you have that empathy, and because you're building a tool for this person. You're not trying to combat them and say, oh, you're stupid and you don't understand about data viz. It's, I want to help you do your job, work with me. You're part of the user experience, and oftentimes when they're part of that process, the design process, they're more emotionally invested in the outcome being successful and more likely to adopt whatever it is that's produced.
For me, the key question is why.
Oh, we had a slide.
When you're I'll talk. I'm very lucky because I can be really blunt with my stakeholders. You know, I'll say, why have you even brought me in the door to talk to you? Because you've got a problem, typically, right? Going back to that T-Mobile 3D crazy map thing, right? So originally, when I started talking to T-Mobile about it, they had the classic polygon thing in 2D Tableau map, and they couldn't actually show all of it because the file was so big, right? And the performance was terrible. But if I hadn't have done the research and development to understand what could have been possible with Mapbox or whatever, I wouldn't have actually been able to turn around to the customer and say, why do you want to see all of your network? And that why question constantly. It's like, why? It's so important. And I know that it's difficult for people in positions to go up to, frankly, the person that's got the budget, right? Because that's the way it is. You know, the budget holder says, I want your dashboard to look like this. I need this and this KPI and this KPI and this KPI, and I want a bar chart and I want a line graph of the thing and I want it to go up or down. Great, they're paying the money, that's fine. But all that money, what's it going to buy them? The same as everybody else in that habituation cycle, you know? Unless the developer is brave enough to say, actually, what you're looking for is, here's an insight, here's an action, and has the guts to say, why are we doing this in the first place? And it's hard, but you've got to be brave. And that man over there, Keith Helfrich, knows exactly why, right? You need, this is, his talk at Netflix, by the way, go on YouTube it. It's powerful because he's actually saying it's your responsibility, right, to do this. Not whoever's paying I mean, obviously the guy who's the budget holder is important, and you need to, like, yes, I'll build you a donut chart, or I'll build you whatever, right? But you've got to be brave, because at the end of the day, the success or failure is about that. It's about going from here to action. End of story. So, while it's difficult, Anya has a method of being bitchy, basically, and saying...
Harsh. Jonathan says harsh.
Well, harsh, right? I'm no less subtle. I'll just say...
You just have the cute accent, so you
Well, I do have a cute accent, but it kind of helps. But what typically the way I do it is I say, can I show you something different, or something a bit, what I consider a bit better maybe, or a different way of looking at it, because I've done my research and development and I've spent ages working this out and finding out, and I'll bring it to you and you can go, oh God, that's my whole network. That's actually what I need to see. So two slightly different approaches. I tend to hit things with a hammer, and for Anya tends to be a bit more like...
I put glitter on it.
You hit it with a glitter stick, right?
And a lot of math.
Any more questions? I'm loving this.
In the back. Way in the back. Way in the back. Behind you.
Hi, I'm just wondering, when you say tools, not jewels, some of these concepts are awesome and I would love to do it, but is it just Tableau I would need, or what other tools would I need to be able to create some of those visualizations?
So that's a great question. I typically use a lot of open source software that I find can be complementary. One of the main tools, because I'm into mapping, we love QGIS.
That was the orthographic views with the cars, that was all. Sorry.
It works really good.
As well as the situational awareness, we use that too.
Yeah, we do. We have a a lot of time for companies like Alteryx. They're not free, but they, you know, there's R and Python, and there's just so many resources out there. You know, Photoshop's actually, you know, a good tool, but you know, if you want a free version of that, you can go and use GIMP. There's always some way of cracking that nut, or you know, solving that problem without spending too much money.
And I think for the examples we showed, the only other tools we used for the most part were QGIS, Alteryx. I did use Photoshop,
Mapbox.
but you could, lots of Mapbox. Yeah, we love Mapbox. I did use Photoshop for creating the background image for the cars, but you could do that in GIMP. That would be free. And then some 3D modeling software, but again, you can use GIMP for the 3D modeling.
And there's Blender as well,
Blender,
which is
Blender.
open source 3D modeling.
Yeah, so none of, other than Alteryx, that was the only thing with a license, right? Everything else was open source.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, the other bit on the front end stuff, like the webby stuff, I just use Notepad, which is kind of free.
You use Bootstrap a lot. You use Bootstrap?
I do everything in Notepad.
No, but you use Bootstrap templates, don't you?
Yeah, Bootstrap and JavaScript. Yeah.
Could you just comment on the opportunity cost in spending time on the visuals, like the time it would take you to develop ambient light bulbs? You could build many dashboards using a highlight table and show me. So how do you balance the effort in the visuals versus doing other things to help a broader audience?
Oh, I love this. The ROI of time versus product. So yeah, I'll admit it. I enjoy showing off, right? The ROI is for me upstream and doing research and development. And that's where I get my buzz. I like being able to R&D technologies and pulling it through into production to show something that necessarily has never been seen before. That kind of innovation cycle was near and dear to me in a previous life. So I used to work for DERA, which is the Defense Evaluation Research Agency, which is the same as your guys' DARPA. And they would have all these blue sky projects that I was able to go and talk to them and then go, is it actually possible to pull this kind of research through into reality and actually get it out for the troops and see if it can make a difference?
I'm just going to say, that's not a highlight table, honey.
Okay.
Sorry.
So as we figured out a little bit earlier, I'm kind of newish to the Tableau realm. My company just started using it in January, and in the trainings I've been to, and even what shows up in the Google searches are a lot of those dashboards you told us not to do. And admittedly, I agree with you. I constantly am fighting with people about, yeah, but what are you trying to answer? And that's too much to look at. So I guess what I'm asking is, what would be some good resources for someone who's still learning to go from that to something that looks a lot better and is more adept at emotionally engaging your audience?
I mean, there's so many blogs.
There are a lot of blogs. I still
Kelly Martin, right?
Kelly Martin
did. Viz Candy.
Kelly Martin did a great job early on in kind of cutting down dashboard junk. I like Stephen Few's book, the dashboard design book.
Andy Kirk has got some good ones.
Yeah, Andy Kirk.
Alberto Cairo.
Andy Kirk's work is great. He kind of aggregates a lot of work. Some of the Cantor stuff is great. The information is beautiful. Please. I was a big follow of a website called Flowing Data by Nathan Yao. It's a great resource. Again, very succinct. Not necessarily Tableau specific, but more when it comes to showing information. And then on a grander scale, I like conceptual companies like 422 South. They do these just amazing data visualizations on such a grand scale. Like, they show they show all the world's aircraft moving in real time, and they just, some of their visuals are just incredible to look at. It's more for inspiration, but also I think there's a business reality as well that has to be addressed, because you do fall into this habit of, I've got to have my sales profit ratio, I've got to have this blah blah KPI, and that's fine, but it's just a number, and that's the reality at the end of the day, is how fast can I show that number to everybody that needs the number. So that's another challenge, another technical challenge, that we constantly battle with and fight. You well?
Oh, and then 2 more. Here.
Yes, sir.
Get me with the mic over. One there, one there. Oh, you got a Tableau Foundation shirt on. Nice.
I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation and put in a plug for the eye tracking session that Andy Cochran did, and I can't remember her name. Amy. It'd be Amy Alberts. Yep. It sort of ties into what you guys are talking about.
Very cool.
When
is it? When can people go to it, since you're doing the ads?
It's eye tracking.
But it's the labs, right? It's the Tableau labs? Oh,
no, it's a session that they did. But they are doing more eye tracking in the lab also that you can sign up for.
Yeah, so they watch what people are tracking there. Like, people are drawn to the big numbers, very large numbers. People are drawn to like human faces. Like there's a blog post on the Tableau site about just the different things that people tend to focus on with their eyes. So it's a great way to.
All right, Alan, I know you love the R&D to just experiment and just create things because you can and because it's interesting to go through the process. What's your favorite thing that you've created that you haven't found a use for yet?
I think the favorite thing that I built so far, I did an X-Wing fighter in 3D, and what I wanted to do was start looking at light. And what I did was take Noah's math and Bora Bevan's math, and I built a parameter to show a camera position, right? It was the TIE fighter. And I calculated the...
Oh, he's got Darth Vader, he's got them all. You've got everyone. You've got like all of Star Wars in 3D on your blog.
I have. It's the TIE fighter, though, that has the formula in it. And it's actually the outer product of where the light hits it. And I've yet to parameterize the light. So the light is set at 0, 0, 0, X, Y, Z, right? So I believe that if I change the value of the light, that the colors from the outer product should change. I just have never got round to the time to actually doing it. But it's one of those things where we all have day jobs, right? And while it's, we love to talk about research and development, at the end of the day, somebody somewhere has to pay for that. Whether it's me and
so if anyone wants to hire Alan to just do R&D full time.
Yeah, absolutely, I love doing R&D, it's great. But it ties back very nicely to that ROI, the earlier ROI question, as in, if I put the time and effort to do this, what would be the consequence for the entire community if I crack it, right? And that was some of the great bits that I loved from Noah early on, right? Because he was sharing crazy mathematics with no use case whatsoever. It was just a case of, we can do this, right? And I think, Anya's kind of like showing people, here's some ideas of how we push this thing forward, right? Let's not get into this continuous cycle of just building bloody dashboards, because it's a Fiverr gig.
But I do build dashboards, like.
But we do, right? That's the reality of it. It's like, on one hand, I'm saying, You know, don't go building dashboards because it's boring and it's valueless. On the other hand, I'm like going, actually just treat it as a canvas and paint what you want on it because I'm great at math. But is that sustainable in business, whereas what they actually want is just the number, right? So this is why, you know, I said, please listen to this bit about lighting, because you all saw it. It was a business dashboard that was 6 numbers, and we're saying, go look at that one, because that's the one that's the important one, right?
Dagnabit.
And again, there's no, I mean, I think I did one with spark lines underneath it, but it literally is 6 numbers. Back to this, you know, idea of, can we even automate building that dashboard, right? We don't even need to think about doing it in Tableau. Let's just automate it again. So we'll see where it goes, I think. I think that's probably the
All right, we have time for one more question.
Are we?
One more question. One more.
One more quick question.
This should be quick. How did you do the backlight on that lighting dashboard?
So the whole back of it is 1,000 by 1,000 pixels, and it's basically looking at the Dagnabit value. The working title was oh shit, but we call it Dagnabit for the conference. And it basically calculates the distance from the centroid, right? So it's just a radius, and then the pixel value is then computed. The gray, it's just grayscale, right? It's gray to black. I built just a custom palette, and just the further you get away from the center, those pixels change color to be darker. What? Noah helped with that too. It's a lot of Noah math.
A lot of math.
Okay. Well, it's easy.